Traoré has pursued a nationalist and anti-colonial agenda, distancing Burkina Faso from its former colonial power, France, and forging ties with Russia and Turkey. He expelled French troops in 2023 and reportedly enlisted Russian mercenaries, possibly from the Wagner Group, for regime security. Burkina Faso, alongside Mali and Niger, withdrew from the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS) in January 2024, forming the Alliance of Sahel States to counter terrorism and promote economic cooperation. Traoré nationalized gold mines, established a gold refinery, and invested in agriculture and infrastructure aiming for self-reliance. However, security remains a challenge, with jihadist violence increasing by 20% since his coup, controlling nearly 40% of the country. He was one of the special guests of honor at the inauguration of President John Dramani Mahama on January 7, 2025.
So that was Sami Akom's report. So young soldier, probably the youngest president in the world, age 37, March 1988. Quite interesting. Now, it's instructive to note that Thomas Sankara, who a lot of people compare him to, came to power in 1983 and was assassinated in 1987, a year before this man was born. So quite an interesting phenomenon. So he was born, so he didn't actually see Sankara, but a lot of what he's doing is very similar to the Sankara phenomenon. Now, those of you who watched the inauguration of President Mahama saw the way he was received. Of all the 21 heads of state that came, he had the most rousing cheer. Some people didn't like that, especially because he had a gun. Basically he walked to our president with a gun on his side. Some people felt it was a security breach. Be that as it may, he had the loudest cheer during the Mahama inauguration. Now, some of the things he's done, we've said this before, the most significant thing has been the nationalization of 2 gold mines and the seizure or the stoppage of the exportation of refined or unrefined gold, rather. So basically, he said you cannot export raw gold to Europe. So he inaugurated his country's first national gold refinery, which is to process at least 150 tons of gold every year, right? Ghana does not have a national refinery necessarily, right? So to think about a country's leader who says, look, we're not just going to export raw gold, similar to what Botswana does with cut diamonds. Quite an interesting one. It's endeared him to people. He's established the National Support Center for Artisanal Cotton Processing. Again, being in the Sahel region, cotton is very, very important. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, cotton is a very important product that is used in producing clothes. So he's established this National Center for Artisanal Cotton Processing. So again, value addition. So refining gold, adding value to cotton. He's building a new airport. He's embarking on a considerable agricultural investment. So basically trying to kickstart industrialization. We are told he rejected international or assistance from the IMF and the World Bank. Indeed, when you read the latest analysis of those 2 institutions about the country, it's not that bad. It's actually not that bad in terms of the economy is fairly stable, although security-wise, over the past few months, there's been a serious incursion of the Islamists into the country in terms of their destabilization efforts, right? But generally speaking, the IMF and World Bank have a reasonably fair rating of the country. And if you permit me, I'll just read a couple of paragraphs for you on what the IMF has said about Burkina Faso and then what the World Bank has also said about the country. Quote, despite a challenging humanitarian and security environment, the Burkinabe economy is expected to remain robust in 2025, and the regime had made, quote, commendable progress in raising domestic revenue, containing the public wage bill, and increasing spending on education, health, and social protection. Now let's look at the World Bank. The World Bank said that inflation had surged from 0.7% in 2023 to 4.2% in 2024. But the extreme poverty rate, which is people who live on less than $2.15 a day, had fallen by almost 2 percentage points to 24.9% because of, quote, robust growth in the agriculture and services sector. So even the IMF and World Bank have a fairly reasonably positive analysis of his tenure. Of course, the Americans are not very happy with him. General Michael Langley, who is the head of AFRICOM, claimed that Burkina Faso was using gold reserves for the junta's protection rather than the nation's benefit. All right? And basically, General Langley made this comment in April 2025 during a U.S. Senate hearing, and this triggered an uproar among Traoré supporters who felt that he was being smeared. All right? Now, this was further made worse after the junta said it had failed a coup attempt, alleging the plotters were based in Ivory Coast, where General Langley had made a visit. Now, a few more things that he has been credited with doing. So beyond the points I've raised, opening up education to all women. We've seen videos of this. Some people say this is not true, but this has been put out. Vaccinating millions of people, cutting government spending, planting 10 million trees, reducing cars used by cabinet ministers, all in the few years that he's been in office. All right? And then, of course, dropping French as a national language, or as the official language, very similar to what is said in Mali as well. Very interesting indeed. Also important to point out that in relation to Ghana, Ghana is the only African country he's visited apart from Niger and Mali. All right? And of course, those two are his closest allies. A couple more issues about him. In the past week, we've had reports of attacks in northern Burkina Faso. Al-Qaeda has claimed it has killed 200 soldiers in an attack on Burkina Faso's army base this week. And this is a report that Al Jazeera put out a few weeks ago. And in relation to Ghana as well, he delivered a harsh warning to Ghanaian traders who violate Burkina Faso's export limits. And he delivered a message to President Mahama calling for prompt action to curb illicit cross-border serial trafficking. Okay? And of course, he commended peace-loving citizens and Pan-African supporters around the globe. Very importantly as well, over the weekend, on the 37th anniversary of the assassination of Thomas Sankara, a Sankara memorial was unveiled, and then a highway was named after Ghana's former president, Flight Lieutenant J.J. Rawlings. Zaneto Rawlings, MP for Osu Klote was there, or Klote Kole was there. Kimathi Rawlings was there. A high-powered delegation from Ghana also visited to be part of this. So you see the street. Flight Lieutenant J.J. Rawlings, born, they give the date there for 1947, dead 2020. And so that is J.J. Flight Lieutenant Rawlings Avenue. So clearly, Rawlings is somebody he admires a lot, as he does Thomas Sankara. Samuel said in the report there. And Sankara himself, we are told, was pretty close to Rawlings. Indeed, in some of the footage we've shown, Rawlings and Sankara. So this is obviously between 1983 and 87. The two men were really, really hailed. So, of course, we have two stories. Sankara had only 4 years, and he didn't survive. Rawlings survived and became a Democrat, as we have seen, giving us this democracy we see now in terms of 2 or 3 or 4 electoral outcomes. So when we come back, I'm going to speak to two people. I'm going to speak to Professor Kwesi Enin, who is an internationally recognized scholar on security, on whether this phenomenon is for real. And then I'll speak to the leader of a group who are marching in solidarity with Captain Traore. All of that, when we come back, this is the point of view. Don't go away.